Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I wanted to sit down and go over my goal planning with you for 2022. Have a few videos on this, kind of taking you from getting them set up to how I'm going to track them. But today we're going to do how I came up with my goals and some of the things I've discovered this year. Well, I guess technically last year since it's January 1st of 2022, but some of the things I discovered about goal setting last year. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. First things first, I wanted to point out, if you've watched any of my videos before, you probably have seen these. I do consider my values when I do my goal setting. I've set these up quite a long time ago. I review them regularly, and honestly, they haven't really changed. I do rearrange them periodically just because I also use these as part of decision making. So if I have a decision to make that's kind of putting two of my values in conflict, I've reviewed these enough and rearranged them so that my values are in priority order, so that it makes it a little bit easier when I have kind of a harder decision. Quickly to run through them, my values are faith, family, balance, which it's not so much like living a balanced life, but having a regular rhythm that makes sure that I spend time both working and also in restoration. So it's not that everything's even, but just that it meets my needs at that time. I have creativity / growth / learning. I couldn't figure out a good word to encompass all of those necessarily, so that's why it's like that. Loyalty and commitment. Love your neighbor as yourself / community, and leadership. So those are my values, and underneath them I kind of have clarifying statements. So for example, under faith it would be seek God's presence and wisdom, participate in stewardship and service. Under balance I have live in a rhythm of work, prayer, and restoration. Under loyalty and commitment I have to faithfully engage in my everyday work, mindful that I'm not just responsible for my own well-being, but for that of our company's employees. So those sorts of things. It's like what that value means to me and why I chose that word. So this is usually where I start when I'm doing any sort of goal setting, is reviewing these values. You'll see that I did get the Powersheets for this year, and I don't necessarily use a lot of their framework at the beginning, like I will fill it out, but a lot of this doesn't change from year to year. So I'll usually go through the things that I do tend to use is, things that worked well, what my challenges were, what I've learned, but these like where do I feel stuck, who I really am. A lot of these I don't necessarily use all that much. So that brings me to one other thing before we get into my yearly goals. The other thing that I complete is the Wheel of Life. And this is something I got from Productive Flourishing. I'm a part of their Productive Flourishing Academy. Moxie Life has something very similar. I think they have slightly different categories. On the Productive Flourishing version, the top section is more internal and the bottom section has to do with things going on around you. So they have 10 categories: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, play, community, financial, family, romantic, and professional. So I went through on December 11th and rated myself in all these different categories on a scale from 1 to 10. What I did find helpful is they kind of gave us an idea of what these numbers could mean. So, for example, 3 or lower would be a crisis in that area. So you're spending time, energy, and attention addressing and worrying about it. 5 is average, it's okay. 7 to 8 means it's really good, that you're not usually thinking about it, and 10 is something you're super proud of. So that's kind of the scale that I'm using when I'm rating myself. So when I did the Wheel of Life, I took a look at the areas I scored myself lowest in and decided those were the areas I wanted to focus on when we came to the point that it was time to do goal setting. So this is actually what I used when I looked at my goals and I try to keep them 5 or fewer, so that's how I narrowed down which goals I wanted to work on quarter 1. The other thing about this wheel of life is they usually say you don't want to try to move yourself more than 1 or 2 spaces up in the scale, because otherwise it's very difficult to complete in a short period of time. All right, so there's that. So a couple of things that I learned this last year when I was going through goals is that my yearly goals are not your traditional goals. You hear about SMART goals, the specific, measurable, attainable, that whole thing. My yearly goals actually end up being more of intentions. So they're usually ongoing lifelong or longer term goals. It's not like I'm going to accomplish this next year. These are things that summarize where I want my life to go. There are a few things that in the past have maybe been a little bit more of a SMART goal than an intention, but I set quarterly goals from this. For me, it's easier to think in quarters. A year is just way too long for my brain to comprehend. So it's easier for me to kind of set an intention for where I want to go in the different areas for the year, and then from there to kind of move forward in quarter-size bites. So I give that caveat because my goals are not your traditional SMART goals. So if you're looking for ideas and you're looking for SMART goal ideas, these are not them. So what my yearly goals are, cultivate a home that fosters rest and connection. So for me, having a place where I feel rested when I'm at home, and it's a place where I can have others over to connect with them. So that's important to me. Purposefully tending our marriage. I think that goes, without saying. It's basically making sure that my husband and I are on the same team and the same track. Maintaining a sufficient supply of basic needs. We discovered how important that was a couple years ago, but it's always been something important. 2019, my husband was laid off of work, but we had enough food and things kind of set aside where we didn't have to worry about what would happen immediately. So being able to have that is nice. Live like God is the priority I claim He is. This is kind of a challenge to myself because I do call myself a Christian. I am a part of a service and prayer organization, the Daughters of the King, and yet sometimes I find myself not doing the things that I think I should be doing. So that's why it is worded that way. This is one that I've had issues trying to word to where it's something that appeals to me. I find how I word my goals and intentions very important in making sure that it's something I want to do. So my health goal has looked different over the last 3 or 4 years, ever since I've really become serious about goal setting. This year, it's Radiate Health by taking care of my body, mind, and soul. I can't just take care of my body or take care of my mind or take care of my soul. All 3 of those things have to come together for me to feel healthy. So it's kind of a commitment to making sure I'm taking care of myself all around. I did shorten this a little bit. It got kind of wordy. This is essentially my goal for my YouTube channel and the blog that I'm working on. And in its long form, it's share my love of learning with others who have similar interests and provide simple, actionable information with examples of how to put it into practice. I did shorten this because that's a mouthful. So I didn't want to take 5 minutes to read through it every single time I reviewed my goals. So what I changed it or shortened it to was share my love of learning by providing simple, actionable information with examples. So that's a little bit easier to remember and to go through. I have connect with like-minded community. So this, because I'm in a new state and in a new area, that means I want to continue to make new friends. I would like to continue to become involved in the community, in my church, get out and go dancing again, all of that. And then finally, my goal for work is to develop and lead strong accounting and maintenance teams. This leads me to the other thing that really hit me hard this year, is I was getting very frustrated with work goals. If you've watched my videos before, you probably already know this, but I do own a business, a property management business with my mom and my sister, so the 3 of us own it together. We started it actually 15 years ago, which is so hard to believe, we are actually in the process now of separating out our maintenance division and launching it as a separate company. What I discovered over the last year, as a business owner, I tend to internalize a lot of our business goals. And so they go on my list, which is frustrating because I can't accomplish that on my own. So it really hit me this year that when I'm looking at goals, I need to make sure that I am only putting goals on my list that are things I can do by myself, that I don't need necessarily one of my business partners to pick up a piece of that and move it forward, because that can be an exercise in frustration for me. When my goals, something that's important to me, may not necessarily be at the top of their list because they have things they're working on. So I've really been intentional this year when I'm setting my goals as far as what is my piece as a part of this whole goal for our company. What is it that I need to do to move it forward? So that was something else I really learned this year that became important. So those are my 8 goals. That being said, you'll notice I have little stars next to these. I have health. I have this like channel. I hate the word side hustle. I'm kind of become very anti-hustle culture. So if you have any ideas of other things to call it, passion project just seems a little weird. So I've just been calling it content creation when I have it as a pillar in my system. I don't know what to call it. It's not my full-time job. It's something I enjoy doing. It is a passion project, but yeah, I don't know what to call it. Anyway, so that's that goal. And then work. So those are kind of the 3 areas that I'm focusing in on for quarter 1. The way that Powersheets are laid out, each quarter you reevaluate your goals and you move forward. So those were the 3 identified that I specifically want to work on quarter 1. Now I mentioned earlier Productive Flourishing, and their philosophy is maximum of 5 at each level. So 5 annual goals, 5 quarterly goals, 5 monthly projects, 5 major tasks to move forward each week. I have mine at 3 because I just seem to have a lot of other like random stuff going on in my life. And so, and honestly, launching this maintenance company and, kind of transitioning in some administrative help to help me run the maintenance team, all of that's taking a lot of extra time. So rather than trying to fill all my 5 slots, I am giving myself 3 and calling it good. Anyway, that being said, the next section in the Powersheets is coming up with goal action plans. So I'm just going to touch on the 3 that I am really working on this next quarter. So I brainstormed, this one specifically is that health goal. So radiating health. I brainstormed things that I kind of thought I would want to start doing. The first, I broke it down actually into 4 different areas, I think, that kind of represent that mind, body, and soul. Healthy eating, exercise, stress relief, and sleep. Those are kind of like the 4 big areas I think that comprise that right now. So, and then next to that, you'll notice there's letters. H is habit, T is to do, TD is to do, and P is project. So I kind of initially looked at it and thought, what kind of a thing is going to be needed to move this forward? So for healthy eating, it's going to be a combination of habits and to-dos. So thinking about, meal planning 5 days a week, I want to make sure I'm hitting breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I think a lot of what is going to help move this health goal forward is making it a habit, making it a routine, ritualizing it. So I'm not making so many decisions because I notice the later in the day, the later in the week, the less I'm likely to do it. So I'm trying to put as much of this on autopilot as possible when I'm fresh so that it's just executing later on and there's not a lot of friction. So that's what I'm trying this year. We'll see. So trying to limit myself to either a salad or some sort of bone broth soup for lunch. And then doing a 5-day-a-week meal plan, breakfast, lunch, and dinner all of those days. Exercise, I want to make a list of workouts to choose from, some sort of movement, whether it's walking on the treadmill that I have under my desk, whether it's doing some sort of an online workout, yoga. I want to tag it with how much time it's going to take and how much energy it requires. So on a day where I'm super busy, I just don't have time to actually do a workout, turn on the treadmill, walk while I'm working. I can get in over 10,000 steps that way easy. So just knowing what my time and energy is for that day, and then having options. So I'm only making one decision instead of, should I go to Beachbody? Should I go to Fit On? Should I walk? I mean, give me a list. I can sort by time and go, that one looks good. And I'm done. And then the other thing I'm going to do with that is, I think I mentioned in a previous video, I'm following Fly Lady right now for house cleaning because, again, lots of energy and momentum the beginning of the week, end of the week, not so much. So having most of my house cleaning done in one day on Monday in an hour, and I'm done for the week, that's what I'm going with. So I want to alternate these exercise things with kind of the larger cleaning days. Stress relief initially looks like limiting work hours. So it's figuring out what time do I want to start and stop working. I am 2 hours later than everybody else in my company because I'm working halfway across the country remotely. So our first tech starts my time at 9 o'clock and the last tech is off 8 o'clock my time. I'm not working 9 to 8. No way. Now, that being said, that's what's been happening as I've been training somebody to take over a lot of the scheduling. So I am not going to keep doing that. That is not a good thing. So I want to start experimenting with what kind of schedule I can do. As the person I'm training becomes a little more sure of how things go, I'm thinking I can stop working at maybe 5:30 my time and start at 9:30. And that gives me an 8-hour day. And because honestly, I usually end up working through lunch because that's not a good thing either. But if I can at least limit the number of hours I'm working to 8, I'm fine. And then finally sleep, I want to make sure that I'm going to bed by about 10:30. The nice thing since I've been in Texas is I haven't had to set an alarm. Just because of the time that I start working, it's not necessary. I'm up and kind of moving before the day starts. So for Q1, the goal outcome I'm looking at is finding an ideal schedule that supports my health priorities. So that's what that Q1 goal is looking like. All right, the next one that I'm focusing on is for this channel and for the blog that I'm working on. That one, in case you're curious, is Modern Home Economics. It's something I've had for forever and it comes and goes. And right now I'm trying to bring it back because I do enjoy writing. So I'm thinking, again, it's something I need to kind of batch process as much as possible because I think that will make it easier with my schedule. So I'd like to try and batch process filming and also be mindful of what I'm saying and how I'm recording these videos to minimize editing because the editing is the friction point for me right now. I have it built up in my mind that it's going to take a long time and it actually doesn't. I just can't get over that. I think it's from the days when I used to do really long videos and it would take me like 1 to 1.5 times the actual ending length of the video to edit. And now it's not quite so bad, but I keep forgetting. And then also writing. So batch writing like a month's worth of posts at a time. So if you're interested in that, it's modernhomeeconomics.com. On this one, my friction point's photography. I do enjoy taking photos, but that does take some time. So the other thing I want to play with, whether that's later in this quarter or next quarter, is batching B-roll for videos and photography for the blog. Q1 goal ends up being create a sustainable video and blog schedule. So that's what that looks like. And then finally, my third focus area is managing the accounting and maintenance teams. So again, I brainstormed some things. I actually already went ahead and created kind of a management section in Notion for the company where I can keep track of one-on-ones, that sort of thing. I want to get on a one-on-one, that's what O3 stands for, schedule with all of my team members. So for some, my directs, that will probably be a 30-minute meeting once a week. For partial directs or skips, so people that the person I manage manages, that may be like 1 to 2 a month for about 15 minutes. And then The technicians tend to not be super excited about management sorts of things, and they just want to do their job and be done with it. So for them, I don't think I'm going to call it something. I think it's just going to be a check-in with them once every week or two for about 15 minutes to see how things are going. And I'm not going to tell them what I'm doing because they just want to work on their next job and kind of get their list of things they're supposed to do that day done. So I've learned this about them, but I do know from the ones I've been managing directly and closely this year, they do appreciate me checking in with them. So my Q1 goal is to get on regular one-on-one schedule with all of my directs, whether they're official or not. So January, I'm going to focus on my maintenance admin team. February, I'm going to focus on new maintenance techs because we're supposed to be hiring, and there's a set of technicians that I was not directly overseeing before. And then March is just the rest of the maintenance techs that are used to dealing with me one-on-one. So that's what my goals are looking like for this year. I have my list of 8, but I'm focusing on 3 to start with. Now, there are some of these will probably continue to be a focus throughout most of the year. Others of them will kind of pop in and pop out depending on what's going on in my life. Like I said, I'm at least starting with 3. I have the option to add on a couple more if I want, but I am not going to take on more than 5 at any one time just because there's a lot of things going on. So hopefully that was helpful, kind of as a behind the scenes to how I'm doing things as far as goals go. Kind of that productive flourishing framework of limiting 5 at each level, 5 intentions, 5 quarterly goals, 5 monthly goals, 5 like weekly projects, and then 5 daily things you're doing to move these forward. And then if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, or you do things with your channel, do keep in mind you're not your company. And so your company is allowed to have goals aside from you. You don't have to take them on, especially if you're working with anybody else. Sometimes it's nice to have something that you know you can accomplish on your own, your piece of the pie, if you will, without having to rely on somebody else. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. If you're interested in more goal setting content, I actually did a whole goal setting series. I think it was, time is blurred together, honestly. I think it was last year, mid-year. So I will actually link that down below. I think I have a playlist. So I will link that down below if you want to watch a little bit more in depth on that. But I do have another video coming up where I'm going to show you how I'm tracking this in my planner. So I'm not just working out of the Powersheets. If you're interested in that content, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so that you know when that video comes out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!